If you are someone that wants to grow a business, to grow it large from nothing to where it is so profitable, then you're going to want to listen to this podcast. Because I have Nikki Ubaldini with me, who actually started with one small office in South Florida as a regional owner. Prior to that, she was actually a real estate agent, growing a great business herself, had a team. Yet she ended up with over 7,000 people in her organization, 36 offices. And she did that through hard work, yet she also did that through her leadership skills. Nikki is a person that will be teaching us about leadership, growth, profitability, and we're just going to get down to a great conversation. So Nikki, welcome. It's so much fun to see you. We've been friends for a long time.
Yes, we have a long time.
You know, I first met you in Aspen, Colorado at a Howard Britton seminar. You and Gary were being interviewed along with Jimmy and Linda McKissick.
Right.
Now, I remember that particular night mainly because on this panel, you and Linda were doing most of the talking. I said either those men joined them after they got into real estate, or those men are very, very smart to realize, just let the women talk. We'll go ahead and sit here. You did a lot back then. Let's start back when you started real estate, because a lot of people, I know it's going to go back a ways for both of us, yet let's help people that are just starting a business, whether it's real estate or otherwise. What were some of the things that you were up against when you first started?
Well, actually, we were dual career people. We actually started real estate, got our licenses in 1986. And we were at the time in entertainment. We were working 6 nights a week. We were doing a show. It was like a Broadway Vegas-style show. I was a dancer, choreographer. My husband was a musician, musical director. And we got into real estate just by chance, not really thinking we were ever going to sell real estate. And, that's the funny story. And we ended up, really enjoying our opportunities. Somebody invited us to come to the office for an office meeting, or the team meeting as they called it. And they started challenging us, you should pick up the phone. You don't work during the day, you work at night, blah, blah, blah. So we said, sure. So we started lead generating on the phone. And because time was very limited for us, because we only had so many hours during the day, and we had to be done by 6 p.m. so that we could get home, get showered, eat, and then get to the show, which we had to be there by 7:30 because the show started at 8 p.m.
And then you didn't get off from doing the show until later?
About 1 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Because we would do 2 shows, and then there would be another set of music before we were able to go home. So, yes. So we did that actually for the first 5 years of our career. And we were selling 100 houses already, working 6 nights a week and doing that. But
well, let's stop right there for just a moment, because our listeners, I want you to hear that. You were actually working 2 full-time jobs. It wasn't part-time. You were doing full-time. Yes. And still selling 100 homes. So you're going to want to keep listening to this. Take us further into the story.
Well, at the time, of course, we did not have children, so we did have that ability to work the 2 jobs and to build the business. Funny thing is as we saw that we started making in our real estate practice, we were making in 1 month what we were making all year in entertainment. We were like, I think we might have this wrong. Well, it was our love. it was not lucrative in any means. So actually, the show closed for the dancers, and so there was no more opportunity there other than to teach dance, which I still did. I taught dance as well, and or go to do dinner theater, which that was not my thing. So my husband continued to play for another year or two, at night, just doing music. So it was interesting because when I quit working at night, our business doubled because now I had that opportunity to pour that time, that energy, that focus into the business. So when Gary left entertainment, our business quadrupled.
Oh my word.
So it was interesting. So the power of focus, the power of being able to totally put your focus and all of your energy into what you're doing. And we were huge lead generators. That's what we did.
Well, and what you focus on expands, which I trust everybody's getting this. You gave focus to what needed to be done, not what you wanted to do. Let's face it.
Yes.
If anybody wakes up every morning going, woohoo, I can't wait to lead generate.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, we also found ways to have reverse lead generation. We built a great marketing machine, but you still have to do the work. That you can't just spend money and think people are going to call you. That's not how it works either. We called expired listings. We called for sale by owners. We door knocked. We did everything. We also did a lot of networking, and that was where I was most comfortable because I like that face to face, build the relationship, get multiple opportunities from people, referrals. And to this day, I'm still getting those opportunities for our team that we're now seventh leveled out of, that is still being run now by our son-in-law. He's running our team. So it's interesting to see all of those relationships that I built through my networking from the school system, from church, from, wherever we go.
Well, and you're seeing generation after generation now. You're
Yeah.
selling homes to the kids, the grandkids, maybe even
Yes.
the great grandkids as we go on, and you're not selling them.
And we're not selling them. Our son-in-law is, and he says it's so cool when somebody calls and said, well, Nikki sold us our house, and now our son wants to buy, or our grandson wants to buy. Gary and Nikki, they helped us buy this house, and so now we're going to sell it, and we've been here 30 years. And they're like, wow, 30 years.
Well, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. We were both part of a Dr. Gross group, and
Yes,
I remember when he said to everyone, to the different groups, make certain you have multiple streams of income. And at that point, you were in the top 10 internationally with a very well-known franchise company. And you turned in all those trophies for another company that you're now currently with. And Keller Williams gave you the opportunity to start a region because you're there in South Florida. And as we fast forward, here you are in South Florida. They have 2 offices. They ask you to close one up. It wasn't doing so well. So you start out with one office with 40 agents that you don't know, and you built it to 36 offices with over 7,000 agents. Very, very profitable region, one of the top regions in profitability. And you did that through leadership. So I tend to learn a lot from mistakes more than from the successes of other people. So what's one leadership mistake that you made that actually became a defining moment, a turning point for you that helped catapult your business?
One of the biggest mistakes I think that we all make is we bring the wrong people into our worlds. In the beginning, I was looking to leverage myself better so that I had a little bit more ability to do more things. And, that's a classic of bringing the wrong person into the role to help you build. The person was more about their ego. They were more about the title. They were more about the, oh, I want to be known as the leader, but they really weren't a leader. So, that was a wake up call for me that you have to be careful who you bring into your environment. And you have to really make sure that they're doing it for the right reasons. We can all call ourselves a leader, as you know, and as John Maxwell always says, just because you have the title doesn't mean you're the leader. And that was that was my aha defining moment, that who I'm in business with matters. And I don't know that people really think about that a lot. They think, okay, well, oh, well, they can do the job. Well, it's whether they can do the job or not is not the answer. It's, is their mind in the right place? Is their heart in the right place? Because I really care about my people. I cared about them. I cared about them personally. I cared about them professionally. And another mistake I probably made is I cared more about them succeeding than they did.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? As a leader, you take such a stand for their greatness, and that has to be more than their stand for their limitations. And
Right.
I know you've mentored a lot of leaders and you've had mentors. How important is it for people to have a mentor, and how did you actually choose your mentors?
Well, first thing, I think it's very important. Number one, I think the first thing everybody has to remember is get your ego out of it, because everybody needs somebody to learn from, period, the end. And why we might think, well, I know, I don't really need that. I don't need a coach. I don't need somebody to help me or to guide me. And I think that's the biggest fallacy that we could, nobody does this alone, period, the end. Leadership is not, it's lonely, but it's not ever alone. So that's an interesting statement there.
Yeah, well, and it goes back to that who, not what. It's who you're in business with really does
Correct.
matter, like you said. And that inner circle, I know in the past, I put some folks in my inner circle that they were more anxious to find out what I was doing wrong than maybe what we were doing right as a group. Have you ever let anybody, I mean, did you make mistakes like I did? And you let people into your inner circle that maybe you should have went, wait just a minute, not
Oh,
so fast.
girl. Yeah, well, the only reason that I'm able to sit here today and have a conversation about this is because of all the mistakes that I made. All right, I failed my way to success. Um,
Don't we all?
yeah,
Right.
I mean, I looked at them as all as lessons. They were all stepping stones all along the way. And so when I was looking for my mentors, what was really important to me was their core behavior, their core values. Do they have real values of faith, trust? Those are the things that were important to me. Um, not just not just did they know the industry, could they help me, teach me something, because there's a lot of people that can teach you stuff, but I wanted people that not only taught me stuff, they also taught me from their heart, to feel, to recognize, to pay attention, to understand, to not go to judgment. um, and that was the kind of mentor that I've always looked for. And at the same time, they encouraged me, but they also didn't let me off the hook.
That's the part that I think a lot of people think. They love people right out of the business because they want to be liked. And when you said a perfect leader, you exemplified that. You had high standards and
Mhm.
high relationships. So many people out there, they want to have high standards, but low relationships. So they end up being a dictator to people. And then there's those ones that have high relationships, low standards, they end up being a friend. And so with you being the mentor of high standards and
Mhm.
high relationships, and you mentored many people across the nation, not just people in Florida, many agents, they still look up to you and what would Nikki do? Where do you think, what are some common reasons that the people get stuck where they're at in life?
Well, first thing is I think we tend to not want to look within. We the accountability is hard to accept sometimes. One of the things I've always used, and I always say when I'm mentoring somebody, is I want you to look and see where is your DNA on this situation. And I think until people are willing to put the mirror up and see where that DNA is, and that they might have contributed to the situation, whether it's positive, negative, or whatever, where is it? Where is their DNA on the situation? And I think that's one of the biggest downfalls of most people. Obviously, we all need ego. Ego helps us to step out, to make decisions. But when you let your ego run you versus you running your ego, that is a huge mistake for most people on their way up the ladder of success. When their ego gets out of hand and they're just running with their ego, you know? I think it's the thing that takes people down the fastest, because they will get knocked off their pillar, off their journey, and they get blindsided a lot because they're not paying attention. They're not in relationships because it's more about themselves. It's very self-focused, and as opposed to I'm not doing this alone. There's other people that are going to be involved somehow, some way.
It's very interesting to see that. And I have a saying, if you look in the mirror and you don't like what you see, don't blame the mirror.
I love that. That's a great saying.
It's if you could give every agent though that you have mentored or every leader one skill to master, what what would it be and why?
Well, are you talking about in real estate?
Let's take real estate and then let's go to leadership.
Okay. Well, first thing in real estate, I think number one is the discipline. Discipline is a skill that has to be mastered, meaning they have to be willing to do the hard things and the fun things. I think that agents aren't willing in today's world. At least that's been my experience as I see these new guys come in. They don't realize that real estate's not easy. It's not an easy industry. There's a lot to be done. So having the discipline to apply yourself on a daily basis as if it was a job. Everybody gets into real estate for three things. They want freedom, flexibility, and newfound wealth. Well, the problem is they find freedom and flexibility, and the wealth goes bye-bye because they have no discipline. So they're playing at it. They show up whenever, they don't do consistency. So that's where I would say as far as that's concerned. When it comes to leaders, I think leaders need to really focus on relationships with care and candor. I think that's the key in being a great leader. You can't be afraid to say that something's wrong. You've got to be. I'm very direct. I'm very honest. I've been told I'm tough, but I'm fair. And I think when people recognize that you have high standards, which is the tough part, you're tough, but then I'm fair, that, I'll hear you out. I'll give you an opportunity. And I've been called the queen of second chances because I do believe, I do believe people are going to screw up. I've screwed up. So, and now the only time that you don't get a second chance is when you steal from me. Then you don't get a second chance. That's a standard that we don't deal with. But I'm talking about the little things that people might make a mistake on.
Well, I think also when you say that relationship, and I love the care and candor, a lot of people think that care is the only way to go. And as you and I, being mentored by John Maxwell, says care without candor is a dysfunctional relationship.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And so that feedback is part of the candor. If we
Mm-hmm.
only give great feedback, we're not really helping the people. Yet no feedback at all is even worse.
I would
Because
agree
then
with
the
you.
person, they're on shaky ground constantly, or constantly being brought in and degraded so you get so much candor. That isn't good either. It's a balancing act. Let me ask you, those tough conversations that you had with people and that we all have as leaders, did that just happen? Did you learn how to do that, like through Susan Scott, who I learned, or who did you learn how to have those tough conversations from?
Oh, you know, Mo Anderson, the Velvet Hammer. Mo Anderson was truly an amazing mentor to get the chance to work close together with. Mo always came from care, but there was always candor. I never felt, after having an accountability session with her, I never felt beaten up. I felt redirected. I felt, comfortably, constructively criticized, in the sense that with options of how to fix it. Like, there was always, it was never, you did this wrong, and then there was no discussion. It was always, well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how we could fix that. Let's talk about how we could do that. So Mo taught me the love sandwich, which you've heard of that before, and it when she first time she ever taught me, I was like, okay, well, that sounds interesting. And I said, well, I'll give that a try, where you talk about what the person does great, what's good about them. Then you talk about what it is that they need. And Susan Scott, I've done her process too, and I've learned a lot of that too. So sometimes you have to get even more structured, which is what she does. But the love sandwich, for those things that you want to move along, seems to really work well when you have a strong relationship with the person. It doesn't work if the person doesn't know you, they don't trust you, and they don't feel that you have their best interests at hand. So it really, that's the way that I've done it when I have a relationship with somebody.
Well, and isn't it good that you had her as a mentor, as a regional director, and for her to help you with that, because your region grew so much? And you're right, she is the Velvet Hammer and a great lady, fabulous,
Wonderful lady.
And so what's a daily non-negotiable for you as an agent? And then I want to ask for agents out there, then I want to ask, as a leader, what is a non-negotiable for you that you need to be consistently doing? Agent
Okay.
first, then leader.
Okay. Well, agents, I think every day you have to be lead generating of some form, period, the end. Whether if you're a networker, go network, but go with a purpose, go with an intention of obtaining something from that opportunity. I'll just tell a quick story if you're okay with that.
Absolutely.
An agent in our offices, one of our offices, she's actually one of our top agents now. She came to me and she said, Nikki, I really hate lead genning on the telephone. I just hate it. I know I'm supposed to be doing this, but I just, it's the worst thing ever for me, to pick up the phone, calling FSBOs expired. That's just not who I am. I said, okay, so who are you? And she says, I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm involved in my church. I'm involved in my homeowners association. And I said, well, that's awesome. I said, so do you go to those functions? I'm always going to those networking functions, and that's where I get a lot of my business. She says, but I'm still not getting enough business. And I said, okay, so let me ask you a question. When you go there, because you're going there to build relationships to get business, right? Yes. I said, when you go to the chamber meeting or you go to the homeowners association meeting, are you going there with a goal? She said, what do you mean a goal? I said, are you going there with a goal of leaving there, and you won't leave there until you have X amount of opportunities or referrals or names or phone numbers or people? She said, well, I never thought of it that way. She says, I just kind of flit around and talk to everybody. And I said, okay, well, you need to go with a purpose. So she set a goal. Every meeting that she went to, her goal was to get at least 2 referral opportunities, opportunities to help somebody buy or sell real estate, whether it be the person she was talking to or somebody they knew. Her business doubled in the next 18 months just by adding that one little component of, I'm not just going to the meetings to socialize. I'm going to the meetings for with a purpose. I'm socializing too, but I'm not going to I'm on purpose. I'm focused. So that was an interesting thing that she changed her whole business, and she doesn't lead generate picking up the phone, knocking doors. She does it all through those meetings.
Yeah, well, you were smart enough as a leader to pull up her strengths. I mean, performance equals potential minus interference. And her potential was being face to face with people. Her interference was having to pick up that phone, and you were smart enough to remove the interference, therefore allowing her to rise to her potential. So let's go to a leader. What is something that consistently a leader needs to do?
Well, there's two things I look at. First thing is a leader should never lower their standards. Period. The end. If you have a standard, you have an expectation, as soon as you let that go, you're not an effective leader anymore. I think that when you make a decision that this is how your expectations are as far as how people behave, what they need to do, those kinds of things, I believe that upholding my standards on a daily basis, regardless of what's going on, okay, and or who's involved, because sometimes it's somebody that you love dearly is involved, but you still have to uphold that standard. So that's for me, for a leader, is you never compromise those standards. When it comes as a leader with people, how I'm dealing with people, one of the hardest things for me is when people tell me they're going to do something and then they don't do it.
Yeah.
I, I
It's like, first the integrity.
And that's a thing. Integrity is a very, you can't teach integrity. You know that. You can't teach integrity. So when I hire, I look for integrity. I look for loyalty. I look for high moral standards because I can't teach those things. They're innate, I believe.
Absolutely. And the interesting part to me is the consistency that you've shown in another area, I think is huge for leaders, and that's growth. A lot of people, they get into a leadership position. They don't think they have to go to any more training. I mean, I've already arrived, so to speak. I should be doing all the training. I should never go. And I know I've been to a lot of training, and you're right there. And so that growth, how did you write out your growth plan? Because you had one. I know you did. You
Oh,
followed
yeah.
it.
Always, always. Well, here's the thing. I believe that when you stop learning, you basically die. And I have this famous saying, when you're green, you grow, when you're ripe, you rot. And I certainly do not want to be rotten. I think that I love, so now I'm in my fourth quarter, and I love feeling like I want to learn something new every day. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about business. I want to learn something new. I want to learn about something that I never knew before, whether maybe it's about a bird that I happen to see. I want to know something new every single day. I want to keep my brain active and excited. And I'll tell you, in this industry, I learn something new every single day. Things change, they're changing constantly, and I'm in the middle of mentoring our new broker, and it's been an interesting experience for her. She comes from the military, so she's, her eyes are popped open, and of course we've had some things happen that they're new to me too, new experiences. And so while I'm teaching, I'm learning. And I love that piece, because I believe when you teach, you do learn. That's why I like to
Yeah, I
teach.
think you learn actually faster. So let me ask you, what is the next level that you're working on personally, other than just the learning, which is a huge thing?
Well, my philanthropy piece of my life is really come to light. I'm a believer that none of this is mine. It was all gifted to me. I'm the steward of the money. With my husband, we've really focused a lot on how can we help others through our blessings of success. How can we change lives? And that has really been a focus going forward of how can we use what we have obtained through our opportunities to make a difference. And so that's where we're at right now.
It's so interesting because when we get to that point in life, like Tony and I, we used to set goals as to how many houses we're going to sell. Then in leadership, what is the number that we're going to hit? What's the financial success? And then you get to a point now, our goals are how much are we going to give?
Yep.
How much does it cost us to live?
Yep.
How much? Yeah. So now it's totally backwards and it's
Yep.
so fun. During the time that I had and was blessed to have, I was able to, as you know, travel with John Maxwell and his team to various countries and watching the gifts that people from this country were giving to other countries through teaching values and bringing up leaders. I think it's so important. And so when you think about the billions of volume that you've had, the habits that you've been able to create because of these great mentors that you've had, and you give credit to them all, which I truly love about you. You give credit to God. You give credit to the people who have helped you.
Mm-hmm.
What's a strategy that you would like to give to every leader or any business owner that's listening to this?
The strategy is, I believe, is that decide what it is that you want, what you want, and where you want to go. But there's a but, because I want you to remember that there will be people that will come along for the ride, that will make a difference in the beginning, but that you might outgrow, or they might outgrow you, which is okay. And you have to be willing to change your path, because I think God laughs at us when we say, "Oh, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, blah 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 blah. I'm going to tell him where I'm going," and then he redirects us and he throws a little challenge in there, and a couple obstacles along the way, and a lot of people quit. So what I'm saying is you have to be passionate, and when you set your sights, don't you're going to have obstacles, you're going to have challenges, you're going to have redirections, misdirections. But then ask yourself, okay, so what's next? How do I continue to get there, and is that the plan that God wants me to be on? Because I've learned as I've gotten older that I'm not in control.
No.
Was created as a control freak from a child on, because if I controlled it, I knew my world was going to be okay in my mind. Okay. Cause my life was a little chaotic as a child. So if I was in control, I knew that nothing would go wrong. Or at least I believe that. But I've learned a lot as I've gotten older that sometimes God has another plan for you. Sometimes he has a bigger plan for you. Sometimes he wants you to slow down. So I've learned to pay attention to the messages that you're being sent. That doesn't mean stop. That doesn't mean, oh, well, that must mean God doesn't want me to do it. No, it means slow down, listen, pay attention. You might have to redirect. That's
so good, because self-control versus God control, right?
right.
As to which one you're going to pay attention to. And the other part that I think is important, though, is to literally through every part of this, in leadership and agents, leaders give agents support, agents give your brokers support. So we have self-control and we have God's control.
Absolutely.
And you, like me, like everyone, eventually finds that self-control is not the way that we can do it. So I just want to thank you so much. Is there anything that you wish I would have asked you about? Maybe your grandkids, for heaven's sake? Come on, that's fun.
Oh, come on, they're adorable. I mean, just like yours are. They're all adorable, right?
Oh, great.
So cute.
Anything that you would like to make certain that you absolutely say to our audience?
Yes, I do. I want to say, you know what? Every day is truly a gift. It really is. I've learned that life is short. And I believe that you need to be in the moment. Whatever it is that you're doing, be present. If you're at work, be at work. If you're with your grandkids, be with your grandkids. If you're with your children, be with your children. Don't be double-minded. Be in the moment, because you don't want to miss the miracles and blessings that are happening around you.
You know, I love what you just ended with. And this is my little Einstein guy that sits here. And he's, for one reason, I love his quote: you can live your life in one of two ways, where nothing is a miracle or everything's a miracle. You've been a miracle to us today. And if you've liked this Becoming More podcast, be certain to subscribe down below. And we also have Nikki's every way that you can get in touch with her that she's shared with us, because you're going to want to learn from this lady. Many people have learned from her, and they are all being very successful in life and in business. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next Tuesday. Bye.
Bye.